Our next speaker is Michael Wu, who's the Program Manager of the Asian American Student Advocacy Program, Coalition of Asian American Children and Families. He will speak on Asian American students advocating for change in education. He's also brought with him a young freshman at NYU, Ying Situ, and she'll be talking about the program too. So thank you. Just a minute or two, we're setting up.
Thank you. Seems like I have a little trouble here setting up, but it's fine. I'll try to just entertain everybody with my voice instead. Hi, my name is Mitch. I'm from the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families. At this organization, I organize youth. We have a youth empowerment program for New York City Asian American youth in all 5 boroughs. And I also empower low-income immigrant parents, also here in New York City as well. We have a mother's club, and in addition to that, I am also a father of a baby girl. So just a little bit about CACF and what we do. The Coalition for Asian American Children and Families, we are the nation's only Pan-Asian children and families advocacy organization. Right? So we really advocate on behalf of the diverse and growing Asian American community here in New York City. Because we are a children and families focused organization, a lot of our work in our specific issue areas revolves around health, education, and child welfare. Now, anybody here from New York? Great. All right. Now, how many Asian Americans do you know are currently right now residing in New York City? Anybody know? Yeah? How many individuals? Yes. How big is the community? Large. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Quantitative number. Anybody have a guess? It is actually over 1 million. We're currently 13.9 of the population. We're the fastest growing racial group. We doubled in number every decade since 1970. And that 1 million, just to give a little context, there's more Asians in the city of New York than the entire city of San Francisco. That's a lot. Now, looking at that number, in fact, if you look at actual families, this is the work that we do, 1 out of 2 Asian American children right now in New York City are born into poverty. 1 out of 5 children does not graduate high school at all or on time. We have, well, now that Obamacare has been passed, but previously, 1 out of 5 does not have health insurance, and we're really pushing to make sure everybody is enlisted. We have also the highest rate of linguistic isolation. Now, linguistic isolation means that it's currently at 28%, so we have the highest rate. But what that means is that nobody in the household above the age of 14 speaks English proficiently. So what you see a lot in Asian American households, and I'm talking about the entire Asian American community, we talk about Bangladeshi Americans, Chinese, Korean, and a lot of our emerging communities such as the Nepali, Himalayan populations, Tibetan, and so forth, Filipino, right, all over New York City. Having the highest rate of linguistic isolation means that because many families are of immigrant families, that in reality, many times the youth are the ones that become the language brokers, right? They're the ones reading the bills, they're the ones translating phone calls, they're the ones translating at the parent-teacher conferences at schools. So because of that, you can see that there's actually a lot of particular challenges, both in terms of language access, cultural assimilation, and also income, right? I mentioned the poverty rates earlier. That's within our vast 1 million, close to 14% of New York City. In my organization, we do a lot of work to really challenge a lot of prevailing notions that mainstream America has, mainstream institutions, as well as certain policymakers when it comes to our vulnerable communities in as Asian Americans. Because many times people believe that we're all successful. Asian Americans do not have any issues. We do not have any social class issues. Our families have strong family values, strong family unit, when that is not the case. A bit of our work really is on budget advocacy, right, as an advocacy organization. Because out of that 1 million Asian Americans, in terms of New York City social service contract dollars, we receive a little less than 1%, which is not proportionate, right? That's not actually an equitable share in terms of social services. And when I talk about social services, I'm talking about all these particular different organizations such as senior centers, after-school programs, domestic violence shelters. A lot of these smaller organizations that provide key language and cultural appropriate services for our diverse populations. Now, also as CACF, on advocating on behalf of the community, we also believe that we advocate with the community. Which is where we have our parent and youth training programs. A lot of our youth leadership models in which we train youth to become advocates really revolves around our community organizing and advocacy models, in which they learn the skills of being able to identify issues in their community, being able to understand the history of their community and the history and the particular dynamics, understand the power system of New York City, and then learning all these other soft and hard skills such as public speaking, data analysis, coming up with recommendations, and then really taking this into action as they mobilize other community members and also go advocate on behalf of the communities when they go to the table with decision makers. So today we actually have one of our youth alumni, Ms. Ying Situ, that was part of our youth advocacy program. For 3 years. She is originally from Brooklyn, New York, and she was currently a freshman at NYU studying, what are you studying? Studying how to conquer the world, all right?
Something like that. I'm studying English and social and cultural analysis, but that's kind of irrelevant. So like Mitch mentioned, I was in ASAP for 3 years. I started in the 10th grade, and so ASAP is a youth group underneath CACF. It stands for Asian American Student Advocacy Project, and what we do is that we have meetings every week where we learn skills like team building, leadership, public speaking, and every year we do a project that's essentially a campaign. And so for the past 3 years we've been working on an education campaign revolving around helping first generation APA students in high schools. So Mitch was talking about how there are a lot of misconceptions about the Asian American community in America, and specifically related to students. There's this idea that all the Asians in New York City, they're so smart, they all go to specialized high schools, but the fact is that of the 14% of NYC's APA high school population, only 5% of them actually do go to specialized high schools. And there's also this idea that all Asians are in Ivy Leagues and they're going to take over everything, but only 50% of the APA students are actually college ready, which means that they pass the Regents, or they're like, when they go to college, they don't have to take any remedial courses to supplement what they might not have finished in high school. Nearly 1 in 5 APAs are English language learners, which means that, the name's kind of obvious, they're still learning English. And the APA community has the highest rate of linguistic isolation, which Mitch mentioned. And also, we distributed a survey among students in high schools. So this was about like 20 different schools that we surveyed, around like 200 people. I think around 200 students surveyed, and only 17% of them found their guidance counselors actually helpful. So why aren't APAs ready? Why is it that only 50% of them are college ready, or only 1 in 2 graduate on time, or not at all? And so a lot of it has to do with the language barriers, which I mentioned before, highest rate of linguistic isolation, things like that. Being an English language learner, that's a big problem. It's also the fact that a lot of us are immigrants, or our parents are immigrants, so they're not familiar with the American school system, and we often have to translate for them, which means that when we get like letters from school, we have to translate for them. We have to translate for them at parent-teacher conference. It's like a very common experience. And there's also a lot of culture barriers that can create stress. Just speaking to certain people from the community, there are some parents who are, because they're not familiar with the system, they might not want their children to go to college, or there's just a lot of things there. And there's also the fact that a lot of our parents are working class, so we have to take care of like household responsibilities or like take care of our siblings because our parents work long days. And there's, going back to the language thing, I think something that CACF has done before is try to push for translation services, because they don't always have that, even if they're supposed to, in schools or just in general with the institution. So, no PowerPoint, but our campaign was called Campaign Bridge, and the goal was to bridge families with schools. So we focused in on guidance counselors, because as I mentioned, only 17% of students found their guidance counselors helpful. So what we did was that we focused on sort of creating we did something called a roadmap plan, which is a set of benchmarks that we wanted implemented in the school system. So there would be different benchmarks throughout all 4 years that students would sort of have to get those benchmarks, and that would prepare them for applying to college, or even if they don't go to college, like being prepared for going into the workforce, or going to different types of schooling systems, or such as vocational schools or 2-year schools. And so actions that ASAP has taken in the past. So most recently, we've organized a youth advocacy day, and this happened in February actually. So we have no big picture to show you, but there's this great picture of all of us standing on the steps of City Hall, and we have signs saying things like the stats that we just mentioned. And it was a day to inform people about our campaign and help others find ways to get involved in our campaign, as well as a way to present our education platform to the new mayoral administration, and also an opportunity to meet with decision makers with the aim to secure their support. So thank you to Island Voice for coming out to support us. But other things that we've done in the past is that we have met with other youth groups in New York City to try to educate them on our campaign, but also talk about things like the model minority myth, or ideas about privilege that we may not be aware of, or microaggressions, things like that. Other things that we've done is that we've met with other officials at the DOE, especially Andrea Sumacham in the post-secondary office for post-secondary readiness. Yeah, I always mix that up. But yeah, we've met with her and we've presented our campaign to her, and we've connected with a group called Options before, and Options does guidance counselor training, so we offer suggestions on how they could teach their guidance counselors ways to be culturally proficient, or to be aware of the specific problems in the APA community. And we continue to meet with community groups to get support, to get the word out, and we're trying to get more legislative meetings with council members and DOE members. So just to wrap it up, just to speak specifically to my experience, is that I really think ASAP is one of the most empowering experiences that I've had all throughout high school. This is the reason why I'm going into college and I'm studying things like social and cultural analysis. I know that I'm going to be working in the community and in the future. That's not an option for me, really. And it's just once you start learning about these things, you just kind of want to keep learning more. I want to know more about APA history and stuff, so I'm taking classes on that. And I'm also getting more involved with community work and advocacy work in college. But the thing that I've noticed is that in colleges, you don't always know that there are different paths that you can take, going into policy and stuff, because a lot of the activism work that we do revolves around education. So coming from ASAP, I always bring it back to the idea that there are more direct actions that you can take, organizing things, trying to build a community. That's a really big thing, and also thinking about policy and how that plays into things.
Situ and Mitch, thank you very much. That was very clear. sincere and a wonderful presentation.